Hey, I'm Chris, and we are Soul Evolution Collaborative, and this is Stripped Down Sunday, where we unchurch your Sunday experience. Welcome. We're thrilled to have you and have this time with you to offer some inspiration, some spiritual upliftment, and hopefully a new take on life in a uniquely Soul Evolution Collaborative kind of way. We have stripped down Sunday mornings to offer you a streamlined experience that fits your needs. We have this strong desire to bring an updated message of inspiration to the world at a time when we all seem to need it the most. The Soul Evolution Collaborative is dedicated to personal transformation and communal evolution. Two very quick logistics to get out of the way before we really jump in here. One, everything you would want to know about this community, what we believe, and how to get involved can be found at soulevolutioncollaborative.org. That link is also in the chat. Sure, there we go. And feel free to open up that link in another tab and poke around while we're here. Life-changing information is available to you. And then number two, it is communities with missions like ours that bring change to the world. We are actively creating a new earth and ways of life that benefit everyone. If you are in any way able to help continue this mission, we gratefully welcome your support. Donations can be made at www.soulevolutioncollaborative.org or through the link in the chat. So this month we are looking at emotions. It's a powerful month, and it can be a little daunting to even think about emotions. So if there's any truth to this, if there's any chance that you are similar to me, perhaps you've been, running or hiding from emotions all of your life. When we are brought up, it kind of generational. We have been taught and told that emotions are dangerous. Emotions are uncomfortable. When one person is, feeling distress or sadness and somebody else is there, it's in the past been kind of the norm for like, parents or, you know, friends, coworkers to kind of like when we see somebody crying, we want to come pat them on the back. We want to hand them the tissue and all of these things. And we feel like we're offering help. But what we're essentially saying is, here, take this tissue so you can stop crying because it makes me uncomfortable. I have a hard time seeing you. And now I'm not saying that, I'm not accusing everybody of doing that. I'm just saying it's kind of a subconscious thing that we do. If you're a member of the Soul Evolution Collaborative Facebook community page, you've probably seen the clip that I put up of Hank Hill from King of the Hill, which is kind of funny. He's teaching Luann how to, choose two paths when life throws you a curveball of either crying or not crying, and tells her to, stuff down those feelings into the pit of your stomach. And then she says it hurts. He said, that's good. That's natural. That's your body because it doesn't want to swallow the emotions. So you stuff that pain down there too and never let it out again. And she says, I think it's working because I feel sick, but I don't feel sad anymore. So how many of us that has been our experience in life to just tell us that, when we feel upset and feel that we need to cry, that it's best just to kind of hide that. And like, if it's the way that on this I life is when I am upset, or when I used to be upset, or, triggered in, relationship with my significant other, partially out of like a fear of conflict or not wanting to be in conflict, or also, subconsciously feeling like, my feelings aren't, if it's not big enough like that, I need to say something, then I'm just going to keep it to myself. And so what happens then is I stuff these little like annoyances, these little things that I don't feel are worthy for me to raise my voice to, stand up for. But then they kind of pile up and pile up. And the thing is, you can't stuff all those emotions down in and keep them forever, because eventually they're going to come out in some way. For me, it would come out in an emotional outburst. For other people, it might end up manifesting in, physical ailments. It might manifest in mental ailments. Yeah, I love Marsha just chimed in that the experience was to stop crying or give you something to cry about. Didn't want that. Marsha, I love that. That's exactly. I was told that a lot too. You need to either stop crying or don't make me give you something to cry about. That's how we, in the past, it's the easiest way for, parents to deal with their children when they're crying over something that, the parent maybe doesn't feel is worthy of crying. And so just telling them, forcing them to stop that. And, that's how they did it, and it's how their parents did it, and it's how their parents did it, and it's just generational thing. And I think, we're getting to a place now where, thank goodness we've grown, we've learned, and we can experience that there's better ways to allow our children to express their emotions. There's better way for us to express our emotions. So when I was talking about, we stuff them down, and that might manifest for some people in health conditions. It might manifest for other people in personality conditions. For me, it was, more personality, and then also behavioral. So I would stuff them down, and then the smallest thing would come up, and I would just erupt in this, violent outburst of, yelling and kind of over the top emotion. So these emotions, when we stuff them down, when we might think we're dealing with them, but really underneath, they're always there until somehow we process them. So where we're at now to move forward, to learn, to grow, is learning to welcome the emotions. The emotions are, such a huge spectrum. And, some people claim you can, boil them down to like 6 core emotions. Some people claim you can take it even further down to just 2, either fear or love. And then other people, say that there's 88 emotions. There's all these different feelings or emotions that come from the core, but they all add to our experience of life. And when we welcome it and open up into it, it's a learning thing. We learn about ourselves. We learn about our experience, about what's going on around us. So as we continue to think about the future we want to create for ourselves on a personal level and ourselves on a global level, it's very important for us to take all the tools that we have available to us and learn and grow from them. And emotions are one of the most powerful tools for instantaneous feedback into our mental well-being. When we look at ourselves as a 3-part being, we are mind, body, and soul. So we have, pain cells or nerves, receptors, that when our physical body is hurting or feeling pleasure or anywhere, on the spectrum of physical sensations, it's instantaneous. And before we even know what's going on, our body's already telling us what we're experiencing. Well, the emotions are the counterpart to that, or I guess the correlation to our mental body. So the emotions that we experience are instantaneous as well. When we see something that makes us afraid, like before our mind even knows what's going on, our body's already told us. It's already released the chemicals in the form of, the emotion in the form of chemicals that tells us, like, you need to be on alert, look out, this is going on. Or, something is bringing us pleasure, like a smile shows up on our face before we even have registered mentally, consciously, what has happened. It's really interesting that they've done studies of this, that they'll show pictures on a screen monitoring the physiology of people, and when they show the picture of like somebody smiling, the person's face starts shifting into the smile before they even see it. And what I found was really interesting is, in one of these studies, they were doing this with people who experience blindness. They haven't been able to see, but it's because of the disconnection between their optic nerve and their brain. The same people who have never seen in their lives, and their eyes would be functional if they were able to connect to that optic nerve. They did the same test with these computer screens. And so people just sitting there, they can't see anything, don't know anything. They were doing the same responses. They would see a smiley face, and a person smiling and they would smile, or an angry face and their brow would furrow. And the researchers, we asked them, like, how do you know what's on the screen? How are you, seeing that? And the study that I saw, the guy was kind of funny. He's like, I'm blind. I don't see it. But it's suggestive that the pathways, it's in the limbic system of our brain, the pathways that experience the emotions as a chemical response are built in there. So while the signal's coming in, it's not registering as, images to the person without sight, but the brain was still recognizing these emotional cues and feeling the emotions in their body. I found that absolutely fascinating. It's all hardwired, these core emotions, and it's a feedback system with ourselves and the universe. And it just, again, to me, just reaffirms the beyond imagination of how intelligent the design of our human body is, the design of our mind, of our brain and our mind, the way that the whole universe is constantly feeding back to itself. We feed to it. It's what Ernest Holmes, if you're not familiar with Ernest Holmes, he was the founder of the science of mind, or religious science. It's a philosophy that has taken wisdom from all these teachings from ancient history and modern thought up to the point of when he lived, indigenous cultures, and kind of woven together this golden truth. So Ernest Holmes has taken, oh, now I lost my train of thought. The idea that we are all one of that universe. This is where he's going. So it's the thing itself, whatever that original consciousness is experiencing through all physical creation, that we and everything around us is all creative out of that one consciousness in order to know itself. So the emotions are part of our experience that then registers in our consciousness and awareness, which then registers in the one mind, and then reflects back to us in our physical nature what we're experiencing and what we choose to see more of. And it's this constant loop of reciprocity of experiencing what we put in, recognizing how our thoughts shape our perception, shape the reality that we experience, and even seem to attract to us more of situations or conditions of which our mind seems to focus on the most. So these emotions are powerful tools to constantly show us what we're experiencing and interpreting the world around us. So the more that we can deepen into that, and this is where spiritual practices come in very powerfully, as we want to experience emotions in their fuller nature. We want to stop what we've done in the past, which is to suppress or hide or numb, the emotions that we call painful, and recognize them just for what they are, tools of awareness and expansion to learn more about like what makes us tick, what is important to us, experiencing the full spectrum, us being emanations of that one consciousness. We have available to us the infinite potential of the universe, of all experiences. And instead of suppressing it, we are encouraged to lean into it and just appreciate it all for what it is. Because here in this physical reality, we are here to experience the infinite nature for that thing itself. And what we say like are the polar opposites are really just that broad spectrum. How do you know what the feeling of like sheer joy is unless we know like the experience of what just sheer sadness or melancholy is? It's that richness that without having the one, we don't appreciate the other. So then we recognize emotions as our tools to interpret all of those different things. So that leads us to the idea that there are no bad emotions. There are no good emotions. Emotions themselves are completely neutral. They are simply information to us. So really, in my mind, that makes all emotions good because they're all informative. They're creating our experience around us. So as then we learn how to welcome them, the key or part of the key is to deepen our spiritual practices. So for me, this is meditation and mindful meditation, just learning how to sit and observe. That's all mindfulness is deeply observing whatever we're doing or experiencing or feeling. So in the case of emotions, mindfulness meditation is just to sit and be present and observe. So when something triggers us, maybe in a state of anger, then like when we remember, because that's the challenge, is when you're triggered in anger, it's not likely that you're going to say, I think maybe I should sit down and see what this is about. But that's what we're being encouraged to do. And like even if you're like in a fight moment with another person, take a second and say, I need a moment. Just give me just a minute, and excuse yourself, go to the other room and just sit for a moment, quieting your mind and just listening and feeling and asking for guidance or for information from that emotion itself. Asking, like from the higher thing, whatever you want to call it, God, spirit, or like even from your higher self, or from the universal nature, or from the emotion itself, because it's part of that. And you say, what is this? Why is this anger here? What am I here to feel? And just wait, lean into it and feel it. And it's amazing. When you're able to do this, you can feel something shift. And then you can go back in and engage back in that conversation, but you're engaging from a different level. You have incorporated and processed that natural thing that happens that's called an emotion. And I'm like 99% here to where I would guarantee, but there's always the 1% chance that maybe I'm wrong on it. But my guess is that if you find yourself in a situation where you're in that conflict, if you're able to excuse yourself and just give it a moment to observe the anger and that you're feeling, and then get back into that situation and you come from it from a newer place, now that you've experienced that emotion for what it is, you're going to respond differently. You're going to be more open, maybe more empathetic to what the other person's experiencing, and also more able to consciously express what you're feeling. And that's generally what it comes down to in conflict, is people are feeling strong emotions and unable to express exactly what they're feeling. It turns into more of a blaming thing. But if we can step outside of that and come back with our experience of what we're feeling, then we can have more engaged conversations. And now it doesn't just apply to anger, it applies to any emotion that you feel. If you experience joy, I love like a good movie, or a good, even just a short feel good clip, good news network kind of clip, where you see somebody out in the world doing something positive and helpful for another, that you can get those emotions triggered. Like when you see it, before you have fully processed it, you are feeling kind of that boost of like serotonin and the positive feel good hormones, just by witnessing it. Lean into that, take that into a moment, and go quiet and say, like, what is this telling me? What is this joy about? What am I experiencing in my body? Just being mindfully aware, and it expands and enriches. And when you tap into that feeling of like joyous bliss, tears of joy kind of experience, you're tapping into the deeper expanded nature that we are here to experience in this physical world. It's a little touch, a little taste of the divine. Literally. I know it sounds kind of crazy and kind of woo woo, but you can really tap into that deeper nature, and it just expands everything in your being. So that's where I want to kind of wrap this up today, is into that idea of deepening our EQ, our emotional intelligence. One of the ways of doing that is just what I just said, becoming mindful and observing our emotions when they show up. And as we do that, we deepen empathy and understanding for ourselves. We learn a little more about like what makes us tick. Why do I get upset at that? Why do I really love that? As we learn these things, we learn the signals, we learn the physical sensations and what it looks like. And then through that, we begin to recognize it in others. We begin to see what maybe they don't. We begin to, through our interactions and our being, give permission to others to open up and learn more about their own signals, their own emotions. Through this whole way, we just deepen and expand compassion and wellness on this entire planet. And Lord knows that's really very needed right now. We're at this time, it's crazy on the planet. We're going to be and are experiencing like mass grief trauma. The last couple of years of the pandemic is a great example, and then tie that into several other concerns that are constantly evolving on this planet. And we're in a place where we need some emotional healing. So it's us as seekers, those who want to learn and expand more about ourselves. It's our kind of responsibility to put it, in a way that might seem daunting. I don't want to do that because it's also a joy and a privilege to be able to have time to dedicate to our, to learning more about ourselves. But as we do it, we are really creating and demonstrating for the rest of the world what is possible. And we see more compassion within ourselves. We can see it out there and we can be it out there. And that's truly how we're going to shift this world into new ways of being that let those generational things go, where, we've tried to hide the things that don't feel good. It's all part of the whole. So as we learn to embrace it all, that is our gift of experiencing a life of richness and wellness. And that's how we will create, the new earth, a shift in human consciousness that just recognizes everybody for what they are, all little tiny pieces of that divine. So I hope you enjoyed this. Have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful month. And I encourage you to open up. Open up to what your emotions are telling you. And then be on the lookout, because when we do this, the universe, the system that we're all part of, will bring us opportunities to lean in and really expand on our being. So be well, everybody, and we will see you next time.